This media conference is a matter of national importance that can turn around national security in this country. What is the performance appraisal of Gary Griffith? But before we come to something so dramatic and so important, so critical to national security, I say it with a great degree of sarcasm, I think it is important that we deal with other important matters of public interest that the public should be brought to their attention. There are a few matters, just for clarification, over the last few days. And again, unfortunately, due to social media has proven to be an avenue where many persons make comments, and with that, you get the domino effect where people actually believe it to be true. So just a few matters, just for clarification. As it pertains to a video, again, that was shown a few weeks ago with certain persons down the islands. Again, the reason why we are bringing this up is that it gives the perception that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we are not, we are a biased police service, and that we only select and handpick persons that we enforce the law on. Nothing could be further from the truth. As it pertains to this video, again, it was stated that it was 1%. It had to do with the 1%, whatever that is. But looking at it, we could not even find 1% of that 1% in that video. And again, I'll just ask Mr. Ford just to clarify. What has happened now is, unfortunately, again, because of the regulations pertaining to the wearing of the mask, pertaining to the numbers, anybody that sends a photograph or a video that can be 20 years ago, all the persons who become law enforcement experts, the first question they ask is why the person is not wearing their mask, why are so many persons assembled? And I'll ask Mr. Ford, the DCP operation, just to clarify, especially even in that video, we cannot be looking at videos that can be years ago, months ago, and then try to see if we can go along a line to arrest persons just to satisfy others. Mr. Ford.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner. And good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. As it pertains to the video in circulation, just to inform the national population that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is in receipt of that video. Our cyber and social media unit is actively pursuing that video to ascertain its origin. Now, we are aware that police officers, by and large, respond to reports, and then we take action. What is imperative, especially in light of the COVID-19 regulations, is that many of these videos that we see occurring, they are sent to us sometimes after the fact. We have one of our mottos as, if you see something, say something. And what we are asking the members of the public to do is, when you are aware of these things happening, get some information to us. We are replete with history where persons have informed us of offensive behaviors taking place, and we have responded, and we have reported to you the actions that we have taken. We are not here to shield or to block for anybody. Anyone that is found breaching the COVID-19 regulations, we are going to take action. What we are asking is, please do not wait until long after and then ask, what is the police doing about it? We will investigate, but it helps all of us if we can get the information more real time, especially this type of information occurring real time in the COVID-19 situation, so that we can respond.
Okay, so. Thank you very much, Mr. Ford. As we are already down the islands, we can stay down the islands to continue on other comments that were being made by persons. And again, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we are not here to justify the law. We are here to enforce the law. We've seen many persons complaining about the decision made by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service when we re-emphasize that you cannot be on a vessel and go in the water. You cannot have a house down the islands and jump off your jetty and go in the water. Many persons who are experts in dealing with the COVID pandemic, they will say that if I jump off my boat or if I jump off my jetty, and I go back in my home, how can that cause the spread? And maybe you have, there's some justification to that. However, this would open up Pandora's box, which is why it is we have stuck to the process that all the waters in Trinidad and Tobago, no one is to go and venture in the waters or the beaches, regardless if you have your own home down the islands, regardless if you have your vessel. Because the next thing that will happen is that someone will just say, well, why can't my child swim in sea lots or wherever at 1 o'clock in the morning by himself or herself? So to avoid that, that is the reason why we are stuck to this. So we've asked persons, please stop trying to justify or give relevance to the law. There's a law, let us just try to adhere to it as much as possible. And again, we now move on to what I have seen is, again, many experts seem to understand and know what the Commissioner of Police should do, where he should go. And I've seen over the last few days, again, as the Commissioner of Police, there was an incident that took place at CPL. There was a minor security breach. I am the chair of the security committee for CPL. We have hundreds of police officers directly and indirectly involved in security for that CPL, taking place at the Brian Lara Stadium and the Queen's Park Oval. There's something called a venue operations center. But people who, again, very mischievous, they love to stalk Gary Griffith to see where it is that he is patrolling, what it is he's doing, try to ask why was the Commissioner of Police in a place that he is the person who is in control of all security. There are over 250 players, officials, who we have in a bubble. There are also hundreds of other individuals, inclusive of security officers, police officers, fire officers, groundsmen, who must not be part of that bubble. We have to be very, very clinical in our security operational plan to make sure that no one who's outside of the bubble, who will be part of providing the administrative or logistic support for CPL, could encroach into that bubble, and vice versa. So that is why we have a venue operational command center that is totally far and apart from the players. But again, people in a mischievous manner try to question why the Commissioner of Police is not doing his job. It is not the first time. It was also recent when it is that I was involved in going to the Queen's Park Savannah during the Black Lives Matter movement, and I was commended by most people for trying to rectify a situation to prevent it from escalating. And again, we can even move on to the recent impasse involving the United TTFA and FIFA, where as the Commissioner of Police, people again, they always know, everybody all of a sudden knows the role and function of a Commissioner of Police. And they say, well, that is not the role of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. To educate those persons who do not understand what is known in criminological theory as secondary crime prevention. Secondary crime prevention is a critical element of policing. Secondary crime prevention, many people are not aware of. All that we are aware of as it pertains to policing is primary crime prevention, which pertains to law enforcement, hard targeting, roadblocks, patrols, arrests. It is more than, that is much more than the policing. Policing also entails secondary crime prevention, getting young persons to use their energies away from a life of crime. Sport plays a very critical part to this. That is why it is we had the Commissioner's Cup, which is why it is that all over the world you will see police officers involved in taking part in sporting activities with young persons, which is why we have over 100 police youth clubs. By getting the police to interact with young persons, we know the importance of sport. If it is that there's any possibility that Trinidad and Tobago can become blacklisted by FIFA, it is going to affect sport, it is going to affect young persons, it can cause young persons to move into a life of crime, it can take away opportunities for young persons, not just on the national senior team, but all of the other youth teams. It will take away the possibility of young persons getting contracts and scholarships abroad. It can also affect many of the national players who are seen as role models in the community not being role models anymore because you will not have a national team. Therein lies the reason why the Commissioner of Police has a vested interest to ensure and see what he can do as best as possible to rectify this situation. And before we go into the matters that pertains to my assessment, I would just like for the final time deal with this matter as it pertains to ACP Hackshaw. And I will bring this matter, I will not be bringing this up again. Again, I would like to re-emphasize the point that the Police Complaint Authority, they have submitted nothing to the police service involving anything as it pertains to this officer acquiring funds from illegal means. So when we have Kirkwaite and other persons plastering misinformation, questioning the fact of what is being done about Mr. Hackshaw based on money in his account, it means that he is questioning the professionalism of the PCA, because the PCA up to this time, similar to the police, both investigations have up to this time proven that there has been no criminal intent or possible investigation angled towards the individual being involved in criminal activity, whether it is, you want to call it white-collar crime, money laundering, access of funds through fraudulent means, fraud, nothing. All of this is because what we have is to ascertain whether a police officer got permission to work whilst he was on 1 year's vacation. That is it. And again, as I said, as the Commissioner of Police, I will deal with it as much as possible. This is not the first time this has happened. I will clarify next week in the media conference what I have done to prevent this from happening in the future, because we have seen many police officers who have engaged in similar activities where they acquire funds from different organizations under the guise of acquiring funds to then resubmit the funds to assist, whether it is a charitable organization, a school, or community project. I think it was an inappropriate system, which is why we formed the I Support Our Service. So now we have checks and balances for every single cent that comes into the police service. We can account for it, we know what was given, and we can know how it was distributed. So it takes away any perception of fraudulent activity. As I said, however, we have senior officers who have farms, they have family members who they are partners with in business. Many of them have worked in Tribe, Bliss, Humor, Heart, you name it. And none of them, well, virtually most of them, have never asked the Commissioner of Police for permission. It doesn't make it right. It is in the discipline that anyone who decides to work should ask the Commissioner of Police for permission. That is what we are investigating, nothing else. So when it is we see people continue to go on social media to give the perception that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we are trying to cover up, we are not doing what is required, we are. The PCA at no time have they submitted any report to the police service to align the fact that this individual was involved in acquiring funds through illegal means. And now what we have seen is, unfortunately, and I would like to make mention of this because Mr. Keith Suberu, he made a comment in the newspaper. And again, this is where it is we see dinosaurs come out speaking about an incident that he recalled in 1975 to try to align the fact of what the police can do to deal with the situation I'm in now because of Mr. Hackshaw being an ACP. You cannot use a civilian. I mean, I have a 7-year-old nephew that understands this. You cannot use a civilian to be part of a tribunal to take disciplinary action on a serving police officer. I will now ask the head of legal, Mr. Chandler, to clarify, because what Mr. Suberu has tried to do is, again, everybody is an expert. Everybody is a bush lawyer. Everybody is a law enforcement talent. Everyone is a Starsky and Hutch now, so everyone has an opinion. And unfortunately, is when the Commissioner of Police decides to correct the inaccurate opinions, people get offended. But it is my right to clarify these matters, because if I don't, the wrong perception becomes reality. So in total contrast to the misleading information by Mr. Suberu to give the perception that you can use civilians, you cannot use a police officer to investigate a member of the Defense Force. It's in the Defense Act. You cannot use a member of the Defense Force to investigate a police officer in an internal disciplinary matter. This is not an individual in Wassa who committed some disciplinary internal matter, so you could get someone from TSTT to do it. These are civilians you're asking, and then he had the audacity to state, well, get someone out of a higher rank in the public service, higher than Mr. Hackshaw. What civilian rank is higher than an ACP? You can't use the rank of a police officer to align it with that of a civilian. So I'll ask Mr. Chandler just to clarify, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. So I know that we would have spoken about this last week. And again, it seems like we are beating the same horse for another week again. It's unfortunate because Commissioner would have ideally put it that the comments from Mr. Suberu are clearly archaic. It's very draconian. I mean, he is citing a 1975 situation of Dr. Williams. So is it that we live in the past? Is it that the law has not changed? Is it that authorities from the Privy Council has not developed our jurisprudence within our jurisdiction? It has. The law has changed significantly. In fact, the Police Service Act and regulations were amended in 2006-7. So the fact of the matter is even the Police Service Act and regulations have been changed. So what the Commissioner has just clearly set out is that the law provides for him to deal with constable to assistant commissioner of police, which is what Mr. Hackshaw is, an assistant commissioner of police. So that it provides for him as the commissioner to deal with the discipline. Discipline as it pertains to the commissioner and the deputy commissioner falls within the remit of the Police Service Commission. This is set out by section 123(1) of our Constitution. It sets it out very clearly there. All right? And when we look at even the Police Service Commission regulations within our Constitution, it actually sets out at a particular section that the investigating officer must be of a higher rank. And this is to deal with your DCP, your COP. All right? And this is synonymous with the same section that we have in the Police Service Regulation, Section 156, subsection 4, right? Which sets out that the investigating officer must be of a senior substantive rank. All right? So that being the case, all right, what we have to understand is that as it is now, ACP Hackshaw, in terms of the disciplinary process, we have stated it, that it's an anomaly. There's no DCP that is there to deal with the matter. It's a situation that people are now asking the commissioner to be inventive with. But the commissioner has to carry out the law as it is. He has to enforce the law even in the disciplinary process. The irony, in my mind, is quite recently when the commissioner explored trying to develop the disciplinary process within the length and breadth of the police service, when some letters would have been dispatched dealing with discipline. A lot of these same people criticized the commissioner. You're not adhering to the regulations, you're not adhering to the Constitution, you're not adhering to the law, natural justice. But yet, herein, we find ourselves focused on one particular officer. And I want to know why. Why this particular officer? I mean, we have senior officers who are being investigated for criminal conduct. And yet, I don't see certain persons within the media making heavy weather about those officers. I don't see them asking how far those investigations are or lamenting and talking about those investigations. It is just this particular officer. And I dare say, because I want to put it on the record, that ironically, all right, Mr. Hackshaw at some point in time would have been dealing with some of the investigations of these officers. So is there some connection there? Is there something more in the mortar than the pestle? We must ask ourselves that. But at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is the law is the law. And the commissioner is abiding by the law in what he is doing. And he has and continues to do all that he can within the boundaries of the law.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chandler. Before I hand over to Mr. Ford, again, just to close on this, the perception that this police commissioner will try to cover anything within the last 18 months, 60 police officers have been suspended, 80 have been arrested, and over 20, I have asked for them to be terminated based on they being charged for violent crime. That has never happened before in the history of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. I intend to clean up the police service, but in the same manner, I cannot and I would not fast-track matters just to satisfy the thirst by certain vampires who demand blue blood without the process being addressed. And that is exactly what this is about. As Mr. Chandler stated, there's an individual who has 6 investigations presently taking place involving serious crime. And there was never a concern or a need or a demand by the PCA or members of the media to monitor those situations. But the main issue is if a police officer got permission to work part-time whilst he was on vacation. That is what this investigation and all the hullabaloo is about. But again, to prevent any perception that we are trying to cover this, because the most that could happen on a situation like that is a warning. But I am going to, as I said, I have submitted the warning notice to the individual. I would then pass it forward. I'm just waiting for him to receive it, and then I will move forward as quickly as possible. So I have no intention for it to be perceived that I am trying to hold back on this investigation. Likewise, but to Mr. Ford, again, just to clarify with Mr. Keith Suberu, again, what is amazing is that everyone, all of a sudden, know what the police can and cannot do. And now we have reached a point where journalists are trying to allude to the fact that the police do not know how to investigate. Mr. Suberu had the audacity in his column to speak about the Emailgate situation and said that the Emailgate should not have been closed because it is obvious it was an exchange of messages between persons. So in the great knowledge of Mr. Starsky and Hutch Mannix, Ironside combined Mr. Keith Suberu, he's trying to state that if anyone types a document and use the name of 2 different people and puts it in a mailbox, that means that this is a matter of, that becomes evidence. It does not work that way, Mr. Suberu. Likewise, Mr. Suberu had the audacity to question the competence of the police service during Cambridge Analytica's investigation. And again, Mr. Ford will now clarify everything that was done. An individual cannot write something in a book, and that automatically means that it becomes evidence for the police service to arrest someone. The individual refused to give information. He refused to speak to us. We have spoken to several different companies involved. No one has stated such. We have gone to all the service providers. None of them have stated in any form or fashion that because it has to come through a service provider. So all of this Mr. Suberu is not aware of, but because in his little world, he finds that Cambridge Analytica and Emailgate was legit. I am not here to please persons with any political bias or fantasy. I have to work on evidence. Whether the incidents are true or not, that is not for me to know. Only God will know that. I am here to ascertain if there's enough evidence to ascertain if a crime was committed. Two totally different things. So I'll just ask Mr. Ford to discuss that, and also pertaining to what we have seen recently as it pertains to individuals using social media, threatening to burn down the Red House, threatening to infect persons with COVID. Some very serious comments are being made on social media, basically threatening others, and it can be borderline on sedition. Mr. Ford.
Thank you very much, sir. Sometime in the not too distant past, I came here and I shared with the nation all the laborious steps that we took in relation to the Cambridge Analytica investigation. What is curious is that when we embarked upon that investigation, we were actually asked, what are you all investigating? But as the Trinidad and Tobago public is aware, once something that smells like an offense comes to our knowledge, we have to take action, and that we did. And as the Commissioner has pointed out so vividly just now, is that we wrote to the lawyers who represented Mr. Wiley. We wrote to different companies and organizations in England and elsewhere in an effort to get to Mr. Wiley. We wrote through our own central authority at the AG's office to get information. None of them, meaning the companies and Mr. Wiley, responded in a manner that could have forwarded our investigation. And what is curious is that when I spoke the last time about that, I carefully said that this investigation is closed pending the emergence of any fresh information or evidence. And I want to stress that again, please, pending. And we have the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. We are asking members of the population, anybody, be you private citizen, journalist, government official, or whomever you may be, if you have evidence that can assist this investigation, come forward, please. Until that happens, the investigation will remain on the shelf. But once evidence emerges, we will follow that evidence. As it relates to social media posts, the last time that I was here, about 2 weeks ago, I went through great pains to explain to the population that the offense of sedition does not take much for it to be proven. And I read out, amongst other things, that language that can incite what we call acrimonious behavior, action against others or another by one group or a single person can be investigated, and if it reaches the threshold, we are going to prosecute you and take you before the courts. We continue to see persons apparently not informed making releases in different social media fora. And a recent one, the author is saying that all you need to send a message to this illegal regime of a hole, and they call the Prime Minister and speaking about burning down the Red House, and even referencing a time when the Red House was burnt in the past. We have already appointed an investigator, and I don't want to go too much into this, but if you continue not to heed what we share with you to desist from that type of behavior, then we are going to take you before the courts. We do not intend to trample on persons' freedom of expression. That is enshrined in the Constitution. But we just want to express to you that that freedom must be tempered with responsible behavior. And there are impressionable persons in this society who are not at the stage of development that will sit soberly back and say, this person is talking a load of cow dung. They will try to prove a point. We ask you to be responsible, because as all the leaders have been saying so far, our country could do without this type of release. We could do without it. Thank you, sir. Right. With the amendments to the COVID-19 regulations, I think the population is aware by now that we have basically 4 ticketable offenses, and they all pertain to the wearing or non-wearing of face masks. And briefly to remind you all, they are the failure to wear a mask in a vehicle or a vessel, failure to ensure that a child wears a mask in a vehicle or a vessel, failure to wear a mask in public, and the failure to ensure that a child wears a mask in public. Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has been bombarded with questions by members of the public as it relates to homeless persons, and many of them not having masks, and what we are going to do. The law is clear, and the police officers are creatures of the law, and as such we have to comply. But we are also human beings, and while the law is clear, we have a little discretion. And I'm here to announce today that the Ttps is embarking upon a social exercise in Port of Spain, San Fernando, Central, and any other division that we deem wanting this social intervention. We have acquired in excess of 500 face masks, which we are going to be going forward from tomorrow and distributing to homeless persons. No one will have an excuse to tell us that I am unable to afford a mask. We are affording a mask for you. We are going to give it to you, and we expect you to wear it, failing which you will be ticketed and expected to pay your fine. This is the mask that we are speaking about here, and they are some expensive masks, if I say so, you know. I think these are what the surgeons and the nurses use. So we'll be distributing these masks to members of the deserving public, our less fortunate among us. So even though we uphold the law, we also care about those that are less fortunate.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ford. I'll move on to the performance appraisal. Now, just before I commence, what I have noticed, and I think it is prudent that I would make mention of this, and anyone here, especially the media, you will probably recall better than me, but I do not think ever in the history of this country have we seen such interest over the appraisal of any individual, or the interest of someone's performance. It started 1 year ago when there were polls that would have been done throughout the country pertaining to the performance of Gary Griffith and the popularity of Gary Griffith and the public support of Gary Griffith. I can recall commanders-in-chief, prime ministers, ministers, ambassadors, commissioners of police previously, chiefs of defense staff, commissioner of prisons, chief fire officer, chief immigration officer, state board heads. At no time has there ever been any interest, all combined, as it pertains to the interest of the performance of Gary Griffith. It is interesting, I did see a newspaper article yesterday, and just on a personal note, that article was littered with criticisms of Gary Griffith as well as positive comments. But that arguably is one of the most professionally worded articles that I have seen in a very long time. And the point being is that nothing is wrong with criticism, but on many occasions, certain journalists, they become emotional, they become biased. They turn to become so emotional about the point, they drift and forget about the fact. That article by Mr. Darren Barhow of the Newsday, it was littered with everything about Gary Griffith. It was in depth. The man knew more about me than I knew about myself. But the fact of the matter is that even though there were criticisms, it was not emotional. And that's all I ask. At times when it is that people get very emotional, you lose track and you lose focus with the fact, and that is what we ask the media to do. So it started off with the importance of what is the importance of the assessment of Gary Griffith. So what I would do is that now I will provide it. I did not have to. Even the Police Service Commission, they said this has never been done before, where there's been a demand to see the assessments of a police commissioner. What usually happens is if it is that the police commissioner is acceptable, he has a fair grade, he remains. If not, then they will ask for him to be removed from office. It is as simple as that, not asking for the grades of the individual. So what I will just do is firstly just give a short scenario of what I achieved in the first year as Commissioner of Police.
When I assumed the helm of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, I did so with the full appreciation that the road ahead would demand a leadership style that was more transformational than transactional, more robust than relaxed, and certainly more decisive and deliberate. Whilst we have made significant strides as a police service, many times we are judged for a number of issues beyond the control of the Ttps. Many of these issues contribute particularly to violent crime, from the influx of illegal immigrants, some of whom are seasoned gang members, to the long-standing matter of gangs having easy access to state contracts, which has proven to be a catalyst for gang warfare and homicide, to the matter of persons being held with illegal firearms and granted bail, to the ease of access with which criminals acquire illegal weapons, to the type of weapons of war on the street. Nevertheless, and in spite of the challenges, the resilience of the men and women of this service has resulted in the following. In 3 minutes, I will give you a profile of what we have achieved for this year. The strategic organizational restructuring of the TTPS for greater efficiency, the establishment of the Commissioner's Command Center, the establishment of the E999 Command Center, enforce the use of body cameras worn by officers, establishment of the Emergency Response Patrol, outfitted 85 ERP vehicles with cameras, GPS, and real-time communication, deployed in excess of 100 motorcycles for duty, introduced mobile detection unit for use in riot and crowd control, launched the new TTPS mobile app, created and commissioned the new strategic units, including the Special Operation Response Team, the Special Investigations Unit, the Cold Case Missing Persons Unit, White Collar Crime Unit, Coastal and Riverine Patrol Units. We posted a specialized team to the maximum security prison, assigned personnel across divisions to treat with animal cruelty, conducted over 50 Operation Strikeback exercises, which resulted in over 1,000 arrests, rescued 12 kidnapped victims without any ransom being paid, cracked human trafficking rings in Western, Central, and Northern divisions, partnered with key stakeholders including the NYPD and specialized units in the UK, introduced polygraph and random drug testing to the TTPS, issued over 1,892 FUL and implemented new FUL cards, seized 858 guns and 10,900 rounds of ammunition, seized 333 kilograms of cocaine and 2,750 kilograms of marijuana, reduced the yearly overtime bill by over $70 million, launched the I Support Our Service, launched Converge, launched the Commissioner's Cup, introduced non-lethal weapons, tasers and pepper spray, unveiled the TTPS Memorial Stone to recognize officers who were killed in the line of duty, promoted 313 officers throughout the various ranks of the TTPS, graduation of 285 recruits from the academy, provided a blanket of protection for all across the country, making Carnival 2019 the safest ever, ensured public safety was maintained in the aftermath of earthquakes and floods, closed a number of outstanding investigations, namely Gates, Email Gate, Day of Total Policing, Marijuana, the former PM's home, the Nelson Matter, and Caliber Foundation, to name a few, established a new committee to treat with terms and conditions of SRPs, cleared the backlog of hundreds of officers on suspension and hundreds more on sick leave for several years, signed an MOU with the NYPD to strengthen cooperation, established the White Collar Crime Unit, which is an amalgamation of the ACIB, fraud, cybercrime, and the FIB, contracted personnel from the US and the UK to improve homicide unit, the CSI unit, and assist with solving gang-related crimes, upgraded facilities at 11 police stations, refurbished 50 police vehicles through a partnership with Vemcock, providing cost savings to the TTPS, strengthened stakeholder relationships with over 30 courtesy calls, meeting over 25 members of parliament and over 30 meetings with NGOs, revamped the child protection unit, reduced homicides in enterprise Chaguanas by 86%, advocated for due process in treating with police shootings. Our polls have shown the highest satisfaction of the TTPS in years, which means we are going in the right direction. On the way forward, there will be dozens of initiatives and policies as we go into 2020. We recognize the road ahead will continue to be challenging. However, this challenge will be met with a consistency of effort and an unstinted focus on achieving the goals of increased safety and security to our nation. We will persist in giving every ounce of our being in service to you, our citizens, and to this nation. The men and women of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service are set in their mission to protect and serve, and we encourage you to continue the partnership with us in achieving the outcome towards a safe and secure Trinidad and Tobago. As Commissioner of Police, I give the assurance we will succeed.
Well, that was just a summary of what was achieved under my watch in the first year. Before we get to that assessment by the PSC, we have to go to where it started. And this is to clarify once and for all the perception by many as it pertains to how I got here as Commissioner of Police. There have been lies, misunderstanding as it pertains to me being appointed as Commissioner of Police. To clarify once and for all, I am going to provide the assessments from PSC as it pertains to where I stood when I applied for the position as Commissioner of Police. There were 54 persons who applied for the position of Commissioner of Police and DCP. 24 applied for Commissioner of Police. The then PSC, they appointed a company in KPMG. Millions of dollars spent to be involved in several assessments to select who was the best person to be Commissioner of Police in Trinidad and Tobago. It varied from management skills and style, work integrity, panel interview, a written case study, media role play, and role fit. These are the points. Gary Griffith acquired the most points for all persons who applied for the position as Commissioner of Police. You all will have the files. You will notice Justice G. Griffith, these are the other persons. Out of the 24 persons, they selected the best 14 odd to go through the second phase by KPMG. KPMG used international experts to be involved in it, from management style and skill, work integrity, panel interview, a written case study, media role play, and role fit. Gary Griffith's percentage was 81.94. The second person, I will call him W, 76.22. It runs right down to an individual S. These are just letters of the individuals. These are their points. Gary Griffith acquired the highest points for all persons who applied for Commissioner of Police, as stipulated by the company KPMG. So the misinformation by the haters of Gary Griffith, put that in your pipe and smoke it. The PSC, and you can ask Dr. Gomes, Martin George, Commodore Franklin, why they decided to ignore, after spending millions of taxpayers' dollars to use KPMG, to then state that they wanted to have their own interview and then combine both points of KPMG and their points. This is stage 2 that they decided to do outside of the authorization, where it is that this was supposed to be the selection point. It seemed that some persons, realizing that the dark horse was not a member of the police service who they did not want, decided to shift the goalposts. So the PSC decided to have stage 2. They then said that what they will do is add points of stage 1 and stage 2. Gary Griffith still came first. The highest points from KPMG, 81.94, and the PSC, 58.65. Adding both, the total score, 70.29. The second person, W, 69.17. The third, H, 62.41. And the fourth, H, 60.36. Those were the top 4 scores of all persons who applied for the position as Commissioner of Police. The PSC still realizing that even though they tried their own hand to have their own interviews, and I still beat everybody coming and going, they decided to then say, let us throw all this away and have what is known as Curry favor or Palau favor. It certainly wasn't Gary favor. So what they said is ignore all the points, ignore all of the grades, ignore the millions of dollars spent by the taxpayers, and let us just put who we feel. And that is where they put Gary Griffith as fourth. So it is not the government or parliament or anyone did me a favor. I got the highest points of everyone who applied for Commissioner of Police. And it is there for fact. And I challenge anyone from the previous PSC to question that. Now the reason that I have put this is to now relate to the performance appraisal by the Police Service Commission. It was an intensive assessment. There were 2 sections, one based on duties and responsibilities, and it varied from maintenance of law and order, human resource management, financial management, strategic leadership management, and communication, and So there were 46 different performance ratings under the Section B, duties and responsibilities. The ratings varied from very poor, poor, average, good, very good, and excellent. Of the 46 performance ratings, you will notice very good, very good, very good, very good, very good, 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 very good, excellent, good, good, very good. 45 of the 46 performance ratings, I received good, very good, and excellent. 45 of the 46. Run it straight along, you all have copies. As I said, from maintenance of law and order, human resource management, financial management, strategic leadership, and management. I want you all to notice the one that has poor on it. Human resource management, where we had court matters being dismissed due to the non-appearance of police officers. This has been something that has been ongoing in the police service for decades. I could not have dealt with it in a year. However, take note of this. So the 1 out of 46 performance ratings, 45 I received good, very good, or excellent. The one that was poor is the problem that we have encountered for years with police officers not going to court when they're supposed to. At the end of the first year, this is what happened. April to June 2019, 353 cases dismissed because of police officers. I worked night and day to deal with the situation, find the issue, and rectify it. The following year, it moved to 8. There's been a 97% reduction in absenteeism of police officers. And that is in relation to the one report of 4 out of 40, the 1 out of the 46. The second section, as it pertains to my assessment, has to do with competency assessment. Competency assessment, it varied from executive policing skills, leading strategic change, decision-making, working with others, serving the public, managing performance, and operational management. Their points rating is from 1 to 4. There were 73 different assessments, ratings from 1 to 4. 72 of the 73, I received 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4. So the ratings from 1 to 4 using executive policing skill, leading strategic change, decision making, working with others, serving the public, managing performance, professional policing skill. Please note the numbers as we go along. All 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4. Operational management. There's one that I got 2. I still have to work on that. Possess sound knowledge of financial regulations. That is a headache by itself, trying to understand the financial regulations of the police service. Mr. Ford, you have to help me on that. Business policing skills, professionalism. This is the final report, the summary, showing the maximum points, what I achieved based on the broken down into duties and standard, organizational results, competency. These were the weighted scores. These were the scores I received. This was my final score, 81.69. Final rating, very good. And the reason I went back to the assessment results by the PSC is that the assessment result was 81.94. They saw me, assessing me to be the Commissioner of Police. 1 year later, after being assessed by the experts in KPMG, where I received 81.94, 1 year later, they didn't, 1 year later, no, just go back please, the 81 point. 1 year later, the PSC has given the same score, for practically 81.64, and there was no communication between the outgoing PSC, the outgoing with KPMG, it gave me 81.94, to this PSC giving me 81.69. Finally, as it pertains to what the public perceives of Gary Griffith. Again, there was interest put in the polls that were done. The public satisfaction summary, 76% confidence in the Commissioner of Police, in comparison to 49% a year before. There was a phone survey rating, 79% approval of the Commissioner of Police. The Nigel Henry poll, there was a 76%. There was a people meter, 78%. I also have other polls that now has it at around 81%. What we will then do is to give you all the breakdown of all of this. We have the files. And we'll submit this to you all. The end result is that Gary Griffith I have done all that I can do. I have performed as best as I can. I serve the country, and I serve the country with pride. Members of the media, before I open questions to the media, I would just like to make mention of a situation as it pertains every week, before we open to questions. Every week, what we are doing is to actually show the good in police officers. And for this week, I wish to commend PC Nicholas Grant of the Freeport Highway Patrol. PC Grant, what he did, he found there was a lady that was on the side of the road, her car broke down. PC Grant, again, performing above and beyond the call of duty, he stopped, saw the young lady, went to collect, she had no fuel in her vehicle. He went to a gas station, used his own money, acquired fuel, went back to the location, and provided fuel for the lady to continue on her journey. This, I wish to commend PC Grant. Every week there would be a police officer of the week. This week, the police officer of the week, PC Grant. Congratulations, PC Grant.
Nice performance. This officer from the Traffic and Highway Patrol branch, I believe it's Freeport, went with your own money. These people shut down. We helped push this car to the side of the road. And he went and he buy gas for them. And now he putting it in the vehicle. Thanks very much, officer, for your help. What's the name again? Grant, officer, Freeport Highway Patrol, right? Mommy, anything you want to say?
I just wanted to just tell the officer thank you all for the assistance.
We much appreciated, ma'am. Thank you very much. Hi there, how are you? Nice. Nice performance. This officer from the Traffic and Highway Patrol branch, I believe it.
Mr. Grant, well done. Thank you. Well done. Yeah, okay, questions?
Hi, good morning everyone on the panel. Nicholas Suchman Singh here from TV6. Commissioner, I know you may not know why, but have you asked the Police Service Commission why the length of time, an entire year to select DCPs? Have you queried as to what is taking them so long?
Yeah, no, I'll be totally out of place to go to the Police Service Commission to demand or to find out what is the situation. Remember, this is something that has to be done through a proper process. I think the PSC, they most probably are doing all that they can. Yes, it is important that we can have 3 substantive deputy commissioners of police as quickly as possible. I think by us raising the bar, well, not us, by the decision being made to raise the bar for someone who's a DCP to have a master's, it is going to make it much faster that when the process has started. If you noticed last time, there were 54 persons who applied for commissioner or DCP, 24 for commissioner. By that being a master's requirement now, I can't see more than about 10 to 15 persons actually applying. So hopefully this can be rectified before the end of this year. But I think it would be inappropriate for me to question or to challenge or to ask the PSC as to what is the delay.
Because at this moment, we don't know exactly whether ACP Hackshaw did commit a criminal offense. And with him, I think he's retiring in November. Is that right? Yeah,
but it's not a criminal offense. You see, the police service, they did an investigation on ACP Hackshaw, and there was no criminal offense found. The PCA conducted a thorough investigation. They submitted a file to me, and there was no criminal offense found at this time. So it is not a case of him not being investigated because of a criminal offense. There is no criminal offense for me to deal with Mr. Hackshaw at this time. The only matter is an internal matter as to if it is that he got permission to work whilst he was on vacation. That is the only matter that I have to deal with. So you see, had it been a criminal offense, you don't need to have a tribunal. It's a criminal offense. In other words, a constable could charge a police commissioner had it been a criminal offense. So had it been a situation pertaining to money laundering, financial impropriety, fraud, white-collar crime, immediately it will trigger. But this is an internal disciplinary matter as to if it is he acquired permission to work whilst on vacation. But as I said, I will find ways to deal with this matter. I give the assurance to the public. I have already started what I can and should do, which is to submit the warning notice to Mr. Hackshaw. As soon as he comes off his leave, he will now be in receipt of it so that I can now trigger off into the second aspect.
Commissioner, I know you've been very adamant about weeding out bad police officers in the police service. Over the weekend, we saw the shooting in Moruga where I think it's an off-duty police officer, shot a guy outside of the vehicle who was wielding a cutlass. We're not sure because of the audio, there's no audio to say whether he was threatening to harm the persons in the vehicle. But we saw two police officers, we saw 2 persons
come out,
and one discarded a drink who was driving. I'm not sure whether it's alcohol or water or whatever it was. But is that shooting being investigated? And what is happening with the person, the off-duty police officer, who is there? Is he back on duty right now? Or is he suspended until further investigations?
Okay, right. So there are there'll be 2 investigations that would have commenced immediately. We would have triggered the SOPs as it pertains to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service having our own investigation, and the PCA, I think they already mentioned that they already conducting their investigation. As soon as I get the preliminary findings, I will be able to make a decision.
Okay, I know there are homeless persons who could think clearly and adequately and, as a common man, but there are also homeless persons who may not have that total ability to grasp situations. What happens when we give these homeless persons masks and they are unable to pay? Are we going to crowd our jails with persons who are unable to? What is going to happen there?
Yes, spot on. The 2 biggest issues that we have so far, it involves that situation, which is why Mr. Fone mentioned we are going into the first step. Giving a homeless person a ticket, the first thing is the person must have an address. So I don't know where that is coming from.
Right.
And then likewise, if that person has the ability to pay. So rather than us go down the road of giving homeless persons tickets, what we are doing is to get persuasion as much as possible, especially in areas where they would fraternize and be involved with other civilians, especially, for example, downtown Port of Spain. So which is why we are doing this. So this is the first phase. We'll then move to a second aspect, but it is not the hard and fast rule. Similar to the situation, we are not going about looking for 9 and 10-year-old children to give them a ticket. As much as possible, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we understand the importance of persuasion. Remember, it took a few days before people kicked in to understand the importance of you putting on the safety belt. So hopefully persuasion, common sense, and good judgment would prevail even with homeless persons.
Commissioner, I know you said you were addressing Subero's comment in the newspaper or article, whatever it was, saying that their civilians can't really assess a police officer. Just for clarity, is Mr. Christian Chandler considered a civilian?
No, but he doesn't assess the police officer, that's the point.
Right.
I have 7,500 odd police officers, and then I have SRPs. I have over 1,500 civilian staff members. No civilian staff member has authorization to take disciplinary action on any person. So the head of legal, his job is straightforward. It is not to take disciplinary action or to sentence any police officer. He is a civilian. So in the same manner, a civilian cannot come now to make a disciplinary action on a police officer in a tribunal. So whether it is we have a tribunal, whether it is any for someone to be suspended, for someone to be terminated, or even for charges to be laid, that will not be done by any civilian, inclusive of those in the legal department. The legal department, however, they are civilian officers, similar to what we have worldwide, but they are involved in administration, logistics, and not the operation where it involves investigation and charges being laid or disciplinary action to be taken.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Darren Bahor from the Newsday. You have displayed a very impressive performance appraisal from the Police Service Commission. But what does the record show in relation to reducing murders, serious crime, improving the detection rate, and other things that will give people more confidence in the police service?
Thank you. I just walked into an ambush. I was waiting on it. Because the reports that we have, and we are actually going to give you a comprehensive input in the false perception made by the naysayers. I will show the records here, will show as it pertains to murders. In August 2017 to August 2018, there were 579 murders. My first year, from August 2018 to 2019, it was reduced by over 60. The second year, a further reduction. So since I have come into office, there's been a reduction in my year from August 2018 to August 2019 in comparison to the year August 2017 to August 2018. In fact, this year, there's been a 25% plus reduction in almost every violent crime in this country. There are 80 less homicides than last year. We have solved more murders in the first 5 months of this year than all of last year. There's been a general reduction, and next week in the media conference, I didn't want to go too much into it, but seeing that you gave me a head start. The fact of the matter is the perception, many people in this country find something to criticize and bad talk the police service, and if the police do good, let us find an excuse. So the excuse by all of the law enforcement, born-again experts will say it's because of COVID. Almost every city in North America, there's been an increase in murders, an increase in violent crime, because COVID does not reduce crime. In fact, COVID will cause crime to increase in many countries because you're going to get people frustrated, persons not being able to take part in sports, you're going to have persons unemployed, losing their job, people frustrated, people now being forced now to burn their energies in the wrong manner, so which is what we have seen in New York, Boston, Chicago, several cities in North America. There's been a drastic increase because of a pandemic like this. Trinidad and Tobago, we have gone in the opposite direction. So for those who want to criticize and try to find the excuse to say the reduction in every single violent crime in this country by 25% this year is because of COVID, we'll come again.
All right, Commissioner.
Thanks for bringing that, Darren. I wanted that question badly.
All right, Commissioner, in relation to your ability to manage the police service, and to have full control of the men and women under your command, what percentage of cooperation would you say you are getting from your staff?
Well, I think that's all part there. You'll see the reports, and it will have I think it's excellent or very good. So and again, it's obvious. people could always look at leadership and measure leadership based on different things. You could measure leadership based on popularity, based on results, based on how the person operates in the perception of society. The meaning of leadership by Lord Sims, leadership is plain you. Everyone is a leader in their own right. How you perceive the person's success or failure, it can vary. My point is that I am doing my best, but I am not here to please persons. I am not here for popularity. I am not a politician. I am here to do a job, and on most occasions I will do something that I will do what is right, not what is a popular thing to do. And remember, I have a very thin line. I have a line to draw between serving two groups. I have to serve 10,000 odd police officers and civilian staff and make sure that they do not believe that I'm selling them out. Whilst at the same time, I have 1.4 million people that are expecting me to provide them with their most fundamental right, which is that of safety and security. So I am a servant to two organizations, and I have to be very careful not to go over either line. What I have done is I have shown that as a commissioner of police, I will stand firm and I will defend my officers, and that is what leadership is about. And if people do not like it, I'm not here to make friends. I am here to let my officers know that I will stand by you. I will stand with you. I will be prepared to take a bullet for you or for any stranger in this country, because that is what I swore on oath for. And if I do it, I will do it with pride, I'll do it with honor, I'll do it for my God and my country and the people of this great country. So because of that, I need to, if it is people are offended, if they see me stand up in sea lots with my troops, or I go to the savannah to be there, that is what police officers need. That is what men lead. They need to make sure that my leader will be willing to stand firm with me, by my shoulder, not behind, but right there with me. And that is what I am operating as a leader. People do not like it because this type of leadership has not been seen for a very long time. But in the same manner, I will be the first person to take down any police officer who affects the image of the police service based on committed criminal activity or disrespecting the service or breaching regulations, which I have done, which is why I mentioned that never before in the history of this country have you seen so many police officers suspended, disciplined, and my demand for them to be terminated from the police service. So this is how I serve both institutions, the public and the police service. And by and large, I think the police officers, they understand the fact that there's a leader now that is willing to defend them and support them. But in the same manner, if any of them do anything that is incorrect, he will be the first to take action. And I think any law-abiding police officer would want that.
Just one question again. Historically, the police service has shown a level of non-cooperation to officers who assumed the position of Commissioner of Police without passing through the ranks. It has happened with Mr. Gibbs, it has happened with Mr. Iwatsky at some point. What has been your experience? Well, you would have seen it for yourself. Where I go, my troops go with me. They have seen that I am willing to go where no police commissioner would go before. And that is what they want to see. They do not want a yes person. They do not want somebody that is just arrogant and will just do anything to please the public, which is why I will have conflicts with the public at times, because I know that when I am right and my officers are right, I would defend them. And I will continue to clarify matters, even though persons have the wrong perception. Because remember, out there's a lot of evil out there, Darren, a lot of evil. There are individuals. If you notice certain individuals, all that they do is to attack me. One spent his whole political campaign attacking me. Some just spend their time on social media with funny color hair attacking me. They know what they have. They have their agenda. The peroxide probably goes down into her brain, but they have their agenda. They know what they are doing. Their job is to discredit, demonize, and attack the police service. And because they see that I have turned this from a side into a team, I have built Team Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, where all officers are ready to step out and go above and beyond the call of duty. Many people do not want that. Crime is big business, and there will be persons in strategic positions that would be paid off or be affected because their friends or even themselves would be affected. So they will target Gary Griffith because you feel by cutting the head, the rest of the body will wilt. But guess what? I have set this police service in one that if I fall, the service has now built a foundation so strong that even without Gary Griffith, this is going to be the best police service this country could ever have. And some of those attacks come from within the service as well?
Definitely, yeah, because what I have done, remember, there are police officers who, when they joined, many of them would have joined with the right intentions, but a police officer has enormous power, and sometimes they abuse that power. They could use that power towards control, towards abusing persons, towards using it for financial gain, through being involved in criminal activity, which is why what I have been setting out about police officers doing polygraph testing, have them drug testing, transferring officers if we have intelligence that they're involved in criminal elements. They write to me, they complain, they take me to court. I have 240 court matters. Let them add to the list. I am prepared for that. But obviously, if it is I am hurting police officers who have been involved in criminal activity, I intend to step on their toes and remove them if I can. And obviously, by doing that, they would form their little cabal to see how best they can try to discredit me because I am hurting their business. And it varies from police officers being involved in protecting individuals in drug blocks to police officers using vehicles to transport and escort persons. And each and every police officer would be held accountable. But I could only do this based on evidence. When I have intelligence, I have to verify if I can have enough to use as evidence to take action. If I have intelligence, that's where police officers will be transferred or moved from a location that would not affect the country.
Ian Wilson from TTT News. I heard you mentioned the area of football and the repercussions should we be banned, which is a huge possibility. Have you reached out to the dissidents or the members of the TTFA, or do you plan to reach out to these?
I have a good working relationship with all individuals. So I wouldn't call them dissidents. I have worked from Mr. Warner to Mr. Timke when he was president, to David Williams, to Mr. Wallace, to even Mr. Haddad. And external agencies as well. I am just here to see how best I can assist in this situation. I think it can affect Trinidad and Tobago's football. I'm not here to point fingers. I think what we need to do is collaboration, communication, and perhaps just that type of dialogue. We need to look at the bigger picture because this can hurt Trinidad and Tobago's football. And it is not just about Trinidad and Tobago's football. I am looking about the fact, as I mentioned, we have many men who are mentors as national footballers, the Highlands, the Molinos, the Catos, the Levi Garcias. They come back in their communities and they are looked up to by young persons. No national team, you get no mentors. And these young persons will have mentorship now in the wrong direction. Likewise, hundreds of young men are going to lose the opportunity from scholarships, contracts. And again, as I mentioned, sport plays a very big part towards building the character of a young man, not just in playing sport, but the character trait of teamwork, leadership, uniformity, professionalism, tactics, not giving up. All of these things, they can assist them, not just in being a good footballer, but being a good man or woman.
Hi, Ryan Hamilton Davis, Trinidad Newsday as well. I just want to touch on a few things. First, I want to try and get to Mr. Ford concerning the Cambridge Analytica issue. You explained at length, and well, this would be the second occasion on what was done in particular to get in contact with Wiley and his people. But and well, you said that it was fruitless. But has there been any attempt to look at another angle in the case? Perhaps the people who may have been in receipt of the information. And what was done in that case, and how that resulted.
So we have covered various angles in this investigation. We had some of the providers, we went to them. We even went a roundabout where we went directly to organizations to get information.
These are local organizations?
Local and foreign. We sent communication to foreign organizations directly, and we sent it through our official channels. The local providers, we also went to them and they all came back negative. So we are still awaiting the emergence of evidence.
Well, I know you said it was closed pending an investigation.
Pending the emergence.
Pending the emergence of investigation.
Evidence, yeah.
So is it considered officially closed, or is it like a cold case now?
But we'll call it a cold case, and you'll appreciate that no case is really closed unless you have prosecution and somebody's sentenced, but the court deals with it finally. So that once evidence comes forward, we will continue.
Okay, I want to just jump real quick to the face mask. First and foremost, congratulations on the initiative. It's very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There are a couple, well, the rules, the laws, and some exceptions to the laws. For example, people who may have mental or medical illness that would prohibit them from wearing a mask. All right, these exceptions are in play, and I understand that police would have to look into that when enforcing the law. But the question is, what would police need to assess something like that, that somebody is mentally ill so they will not be able to use a mask, or they have a medical condition so extreme that they will not be able to cover their face, using
Well,
mask?
with the medical condition, again, this is not a situation that everyone who has asthma, they're just going to walk around and say, well, I have asthma, so I'm not going to wear a mask. It has to do, again, there must be, I would advise that persons, if you feel that you have some medical condition and a doctor has prescribed that it is going to affect your health if you wear a mask, you need to keep that in your possession. Because if you're stopped by a police officer, you can't just say, obviously the officer is going to probably have to give you a ticket. So I would ask that all persons, if it is that you feel that you have some type of medical certificate that will give you that exemption, that you keep it in your possession.
And for the mental illness, I would assume that would be very difficult to assess. I mean, how?
Well, unless you have a certificate to say you're mad.
All right, so moving on to the same mask situation, there is also the age limit of children from older than 8 years old. I mean, I'm just trying to find out how is the police dealing with monitoring and enforcing the laws in these kids, and have there been any children or parents of children?
Yeah, definitely. We have seen it over the last 48 hours. We are going to use the power of persuasion rather than to be very high-handed, apart from the fact that we have not yet received the books, the ticket books. So in the meantime, what we have seen, however, is that the public, they have been very cooperative. There's a great degree of maturity by this country, in contrast to what many people will say and think. They are still doing what is required, whether it is based on common sense or fear of being given a ticket. The fact of the matter is that on very few occasions, I have directed all police officers, even on and off duty, if you see persons that they are not wearing masks out in the public, you need to immediately bring it to their attention. As soon as it happens, the individuals will apologize, they would forget, they said that they were eating and they forgot to put it on. Everyone is wearing their masks right here on their neck on occasions. So it's just to remind persons to keep it back on. As soon as the police officers do this, we have not seen any confrontation. Obviously, a 9-year-old child running and pick a mango on the side of the road, we are not going to rush in there to give tickets to persons. In these very trying times, $1,000 could be a lot for a family. So we are not here to try to prove a point. It is hoped that the parents, as much as possible, understand when you have a 9 or 10-year-old running around, it's going to be difficult, especially if they leave your home and they go outside. That can be an issue. But the police officers, we are not here, it's not a draconian police service that we are just going to be looking for tickets and have bonus for how many officers provide the most tickets. This is a matter of national security and concern. We intend to use persuasion and to remind persons as much as possible. If, however, 2 16-year-old boys, they're very obnoxious, they refuse to listen, well, yeah, tickets flying left, right, and center. But let's not look at 9 and 10-year-olds where they make a mistake and we're going to say, aha, I catch you. That's not what the police service is about in this. It is persuasion as much as possible for good sense to prevail.
Okay, one more question concerning COVID-19, and then I'll ask something about the appraisal. How has the virus severely affected or seriously affected the police service as far as manpower is concerned? I mean, how many officers are sick? Understand that there were a few stations that had to close down for sanitation.
Yeah. Mr. Ford
Every week, we have to be sanitizing. And you all would appreciate that we are a frontline organization. We deal with people who come to us, and despite our best efforts at social distancing, things can happen. It will affect us, but as you would realize, our delivery of service continues to be at the top level, despite the fact that we are affected. And if I may, I'm glad that you asked that question, because I want to highlight briefly that despite the fact that the COVID is running through by us, your police is still working for you. Our vision has always been to make our country safer. And we have said to you all that we cannot do it by ourselves, we have to partner with you all. We have also asked you that if you see something, to say something. And last week, Saturday, we had a classic example of all of us working together. In Trin City, at around 10:45 p.m., there was a robbery of 2 citizens by 4 gentlemen in a car. 10:45 p.m. A passerby who, and I think Mr. Bahau asked about the confidence of the population in us, a passerby who had that level of confidence in the police service made a call to the E999 call center. The call center sent out the call nationally. The officers now, Twin City, as we know, is up, not the eastern side up there, in Northern Division. The officers of Northern Division had a situation where some officers who were on task force duty had just come into Tunapuna police station. And in speaking to them, they said they were dog tired. But when they heard the wireless transmission to a man and woman, they said, not on my watch. The entire Northern Division set up what you call an all points bulletin to look at key choke points. And at 10:55 p.m., the robbers had the audacity to come down the Eastern Main Road. We caught them, they were arrested, the loot that was robbed from the persons was recovered, and the officers went to court today for robbery with aggravation, having firearms in their possession. So, although the COVID is present, the commitment that we have, the partnership we have with the population of Trinidad and Tobago, we continue to deliver excellent service to all of you.
I just want to kick it off to Ian.
I just wanted to ask one more mask question before Ryan goes to the appraisal, because we have the law and then we have the spirit of the law, and of course because of the PH cars, there's a broad brush over P cars to wear the mask, even though if you may be with your members of your family. But if I am driving with my wife and there are things in the back seat, and obviously I would not be driving PH with certain things in the back seat. What is your recommendations for a police officer to do in a time like that where it's obviously I'm not working PH?
Well, no, there's no way that the police officer will know, obviously, the person is not working PH. You could actually pick up a passenger and she decided to buy groceries from a store. So to avoid that, what I'm just asking is, until I am not here to justify or to explain the law, I'm just here to enforce the law. And so my opinion is really irrelevant. I'm here to, as much as possible. Obviously, there's going to be a degree of flexibility. We will understand certain situations, and we would act on a case-by-case basis. But I give the assurance to the public, we do not intend to move in there in a draconian manner, high-handed, and just try to witch hunt to play the game of aha, catch you. That is not what this is about. This is as much as possible, all of us working on the same goal, circling the wagons, both the public and the police service.
Yeah. Two quick ones again. Concerning the assessment, well, congratulations on such a high appraisal, first and foremost. But was there any kind of notes or information shared concerning police killings and the reaction to police killings and so on, or was that reflected in the police? You
will take a look at all of it was comprehensive. I said there were over 100 different elements. They looked at different aspects of the assessments. But again, going back to police killings, people speak about it. But if you look at the reports, more persons have been shooting at police officers in recent times than in the past. So if more people shoot at you, what do you expect us to do? Throw marshmallows? So the fact of the matter is, if you shoot at my police officers, they would shoot back. And when it is, we have several police vehicles riddled with shots on it. It's just by the grace of God, none of my police officers have been killed. We have police officers where the rounds would have gone through their jacket. Police officers, their life was saved because he had on a bulletproof vest. So if it is that we are sharper, we are more accurate, we have numerical superiority, we are better trained, and we have a greater aspect in being God-willing and God-fearing, that if you shoot at us and we shoot back and you are taken down, don't blame us. The fact of the matter is, do not shoot at my police officers. Having said that, it doesn't mean that every single incident means that the police officer was correct. There would be times, which is where the PCA comes in, you will do a thorough investigation to make sure that the police officer did not abuse his authority, which is why I've been pushing again, more than any other police commissioner in the past, the use of minimum use of force policy, from verbal persuasion, making it mandatory for the body cameras to be worn. I've made a request for this fiscal year for 1,000 extra body cameras, and the use of the tasers and pepper spray to be used as mechanisms, which officers, if they did not have it before, they would have used their firearm. And then when they use their firearm, then you will say it's excessive use of force. So I'm providing all the tools for the officer to be properly trained. So if he has to draw his firearm as that final avenue, it must show justification, because now you had all the other avenues to prevent having to go to that point.
And last one from me, there was information coming to News's desk, or complaints from the police academy that there was a possible breakout of COVID-19. Can you speak to this, and if there's anything being done?
Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately, some of our trainees have been showing flu-like symptoms from the police training academy. We have about 40, 42, but so far as I'm aware, as at this time, only one has tested positive. We have them isolated or quarantined in a safe place away from the academy, with all the necessary attending medical professionals dealing with that.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
Vivian Bowen, CL Communications. First question, the Sawa Business Association is concerned with the closure of the Barataria police station. Residents and the business community there say they were not consulted. I would like to know how you will respond to that.
So I am so sorry that the police service must consult a business association how it is we need to deal with our stations. Really?
But what they are saying is that it was used for a magistracy.
No, but my point being is that in the same way it is that the business association will send something to the media to say that they weren't consulted, out of sheer common sense, if not courtesy, if they contacted the Commissioner of Police, I would have spoken to them to tell them that the police station is not being closed. In fact, what is being done is that it is being refurbished and utilized in another manner to deal with gender-based violence, domestic violence, and other specific units that are required. We need to get out of the banana republic system that we all feel that every time there's crime somewhere, you need to set up a police station. I was a politician. That is the best thing for politicians to do. If they have somebody stole 2 mangoes there, let's spend 70 million, let's build a police station that could house 80 persons, let's cut a ribbon, and then the police service has to maintain that. I am running my police service as a business. Setting up a police station that can house 80 persons and every night you have 2 constables and a corporal stationed there is not good business. And then I have to pay tens upon millions every year in air conditioning and maintenance for massive buildings. Trinidad and Tobago, we have 77 police stations to secure 1.3 million people. New York City has 71 police stations to deal with 13 million every day. The fact of the matter is police stations is not the avenue to reduce crime. In fact, police stations can cause crime to be affected because the more police stations mean more police officers have to man the police stations. I have 7,000 police officers and 2,300 of them have to guard police stations. So the business association, let them stick to their business, and if they want to understand policing and law enforcement and how to utilize manpower in an effective and efficient manner, they can speak to me so I can explain to them a police station is not going to stop crime. We have crime that will take place outside a police station. That is not an avenue for criminals not to commit crime. The more police stations mean more police officers have to man the station, which means less police officers out in the street. Policing in the 21st century is not police officers sitting down in a station waiting for you to come to the station. What happens now, you use 999, you have the app, you have online reporting, we have delivery service, we come to you. So if you have a distress call, you don't have to come to a station. So setting up a cosmetic police station, a building does not reduce crime. So the business association there, and they need to come to me and I'll explain to them.
All right, question number 2. Commissioner Griffith, since your suggestion that suspended police officers should be fired was heavily criticized, is the TTPS considering other ways to deal with these suspended officers? If yes, can you just give a quick outline?
Not at all. I never said that. What I said is any police officer who has been charged for a violent crime should be immediately terminated. If a police officer is charged for murder, for rape, for kidnapping, and he is in prison awaiting his sentence, do not tell me that this police officer is innocent until proven guilty. The hypocrisy we have seen in this country by people who are telling me that they had no issue in the Floyd matter when the police officer has not been found guilty as yet, but they all Trinidad and Tobago citizens, everyone, rightfully so, agreed that he should have been fired immediately from his service. So it is okay to do it in North America, but here in Trinidad and Tobago, if a police officer does the same thing, you're telling me he should remain as a police officer? Well, my thing to that is no. If a police officer is charged, it means that he has put the image of the police service, you have affected that image, and it means that you should immediately be fired. That is my view. It is the view of, and that is how it is dealt with in many police services / departments around the world. So I'm not talking about police officers being suspended. In fact, I have over 200 police officers who have been on suspension for years, and it is unfair to these police officers because they have been suspended indefinitely. It is not fair to the police officer. It is not fair to the public. It is not fair to me because I have now lost hundreds of police officers. So on paper, I will have 300 more than I really have. So when people are suspended, they should have a fixed time for them to return, or if the situation is so serious, that suspension should be turned to immediate termination.
All right. Last question. Are there other operational issues pertaining to the absence of appointed DCPs that the Commissioner could outline, or any foreseeable ones that you can see happening because of the lack of appointed DCPs?
Well, at this time, I can tell you that I have 3 very competent DCPs. They've been doing a very good job, and that is all part of leadership, as I was speaking to Darren about. Leadership is not the situation that if one person leaves, everything will collapse. How I have set the police service based on my leadership style is if and when I leave, that it will not affect the smooth running of the police service. But obviously, having the substantive appointments would be ideal. I would continue to do as much as I can. I mean, I can say before I close that people complain about the fact that why is Gary Griffith involved in C-Lot's situation? Why is he in the Queen's Park Savannah? Why is he at CPL? The fact of the matter is that I work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. If 1 hour is for me to correct incorrect information by people on social media or to be involved in other aspects of policing, it still means that I'm putting out 17 hours per day of my life, sacrificing for this country, affecting my health. So the people who criticize, I am still working probably 10 hours more than you every day, so don't talk.
All right, last question, sorry about that. Pertaining to you said something just now about police have, like some of their vehicles have been shot up and these kinds of things. Is there any like releases or evidence? Because I know the population have a heavy, not criticism, but they have a heavy suspicion that is not usually the case. So
yeah, of course, because remember the old lady with the towel who boiled the oil too wicked, she always turns up and she always sees what happens. Let me tell you, I could show you this, but the only first thing they will say is that the police did it on their own. The police officer who had the bullet that was in his vest, they will say the police officer put it on himself. The police officer with the bullet that ran through his jacket, they will say that he did it on his own. So listen, you can do everything you want. It is not going to change. Some people have their perception because the Hate the Police campaign is to their benefit. I ask the general public to understand that the police service, we are not perfect, but we are trying our best. You would have seen the assessment of Gary Griffith. Gary Griffith I protected, I served, and I did it with pride. And I tried as best as I can. And the same way that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we will continue to do all that is required to provide citizens with their fundamental right of safety and security. Members of the media, I thank you.